But Bitcoin is totally aligned with a larger spiritual and energetic evolution of the planet that is currently unfolding. So do you find that they're kind of more curious? Because when I say I work in Bitcoin, they're like, oh, really? And I get a bunch of questions rather than, oh, you're crazy. That's just some weird, Ponzi scheme, whatever. When you shift your personal vibration upward into those higher, faster frequencies, you're unlocking the potential to move beyond three-dimensional constraints into a new state of multi-dimensional consciousness, which is a state of unity and expansion and limitless possibilities. It is becoming a more mature asset. And it's such a relative thing when we talk about, 1%, 0.1%, of global assets. So maturity is relative, isn't it? We're in the midst of just a massive global shift energetically that has been predicted through many, many sources for eons.
Thank you so much, Holly, for being on again. Great to meet you.
It's great to be back with you again. I can't believe it's been, the year's been flying by. And it's always wonderful to explore Bitcoin with you from a slightly different perspective than your usual guests. So I'm looking forward to having fun with this.
I love that because, as you might expect from someone that has now over 600 episodes, I think 620 is today,
wow.
And probably like 550 guests or something like that. A unique perspective is a lot of fun for me because it's a lot of the same otherwise. I enjoy it a lot, but a unique perspective of like very different to the conventional guests. It's just like even more fun for me because it's like something else.
That's great. Yeah. And I'm sure that, you've been noticing that a lot of things have changed in the last 9 months since we did our last pod together. I mean, I've seen, a massive global turbulence and governments and those in power toppling, people rising up, a lot of sovereignty coming up, into the fore, and a greater awareness of the importance of sovereignty. We're even seeing that now with the whole digital ID stuff that's happening in the UK. And also, I mean, I've been amazed at greater Bitcoin awareness and adoption. It's been happening so fast this year, much, much faster than we could have anticipated. So I think, the remainder of 2025 and through the first quarter of 2026 we're going to continue to see massive shifts. So that's one of the things I'm really interested in talking about. But I'm curious what you've been noticing through, 2025, what you've been because you have a perspective through all the guests you're talking about, a really overarching perspective of what's happening macro, Bitcoin, all sorts of things in the world. So I'm curious what you've been noticing.
There's one thing that is really interesting. There's always a current theme. For example, currently it's core versus not, which is like dominating Twitter. It's a lot of discussions. If I scroll through my Twitter feed, like every seventh post is on that. Then previously nobody cared about that, and it was all about treasury companies. Mm-hmm. And there's always like a current kind of a theme of Bitcoin, kind of what is the current like 3-month news cycle, if you will. So
right.
So there's always that. I'm not that much interested in that because it's usually like overhyped or like too much attention to a topic that doesn't deserve as much attention as I think with the core versus not thing is the case. Also treasury companies, like the one side says like, oh, it's so bad that we all have the companies inside. I'm like, of course that happened. Like it's a very natural thing that if you think about game theory, companies are in that game theory. Companies are kind of groups of people, and they will decide also to buy Bitcoin as the individuals decide Bitcoin. So it was a very natural thing to do. It took actually longer than I kind of expected when Seyr came in 2020. I thought it might actually go faster than that. But other than that, I think Bitcoin became a little bit more boring. It is like it moves a little slower up, moves a little slower down. It's just like a little bit more of a mature asset than when I came in 2 years ago with the podcast. Yeah. Other than that, maybe it's a Suitcoin summer, more of like the BlackRock people come in, like more treasury people, like the community changes and matures also a little bit. all in all, like very expected in hindsight. And one more thing, and then it's already that one more thing I've noticed. It's quite normal now if you say to people you work in Bitcoin. I remember 3-4 years ago when I first got started in Bitcoin. Oh, it's almost 5 years ago now, more than 5 years ago now. When I mentioned Bitcoin, it was like, Bitcoin, And now it's like when I mention Bitcoin, people are no longer as crazy. Like it's a quite normal reaction to it.
Do you find that they're kind of more curious? Because when I say I work in Bitcoin, they're like, oh, really? And then I get a bunch of questions rather than, oh, you're crazy. That's just some weird, Ponzi scheme, whatever. It's really interesting how that's shifted.
It is definitely more normal and curious, and less, because I think Bitcoin kind of came out of that criminal corner. Like it's now that the president and BlackRock is involved, it's kind of hard to make that argument. It's just money for criminals.
Right. That was part of what I was talking about when I was talking about like the adoption that we've been seeing just over this past year, how quickly, and the institutional adoption has really given it that sense of acceptance, at the higher financial and corporate levels, which makes others who are less familiar with it less afraid of it. They're like, this is an asset I should check out. If BlackRock and various folks are all buying this in it, developing financial instruments around it, maybe I should check this out. Yeah, it's interesting. You're talking about it's more boring. There's less volatility, and that's normal for a more mature asset. We're not seeing these huge spikes. And I know you've probably addressed this with other guests, and we may not want to go down this particular route, but that whole thing of, are we going to see the 80% drops anymore? I don't think we are. I think there's going to be such a buy, bid on the floor that it's going to keep it propped up. We might see, 30, whatever, 40, but not these huge things that we saw in prior years, 2015, 2017, that kind of thing. So it is becoming a more mature asset. And it's such a relative thing when we talk about, 1%, 0.1%, of global assets. So maturity is relative, isn't it?
It is this weird point where the risk is already kind of offsetted, but it's still like super early. So that's I think also like the hard part to explain to people of like, yeah, we are super early, but we're also super mature. Like,
exactly. I know, it's this really funny paradox, conundrum. Absolutely.
And maybe before we get started with all the topics, we're already in the topics kind of, maybe give us some brief overview for the few people that haven't seen the first episodes, that haven't seen any of your stuff, of who you are, and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin. Sure.
It's funny. I have had a very zigzag life and career, a broad range of, careers and experiences. Way back in my early days, I was involved in the arts as a dancer, and I was coming out of school to go into art restoration way back when. But I ended up being a fixed income trader on Wall Street because you can't live in New York on an art salary. So I got my Series 7 and became a trader, and moved from that into technology, which was really just coming up full force on Wall Street at that point, and ended up being head of tech support for one of the hottest computer companies that was opening their offices on Wall Street. And ended up in, I think, my last corporate job, which has been a little while, was director of corporate technology strategy for American Express. So you want to talk about a corporate job? That's a corporate job, in charge of advanced technology for the 5 business units. But for the last couple of decades here, I've had a private consulting practice as a facilitator for deep personal growth work for high-end entrepreneurs and business leaders. And personally, I've been exploring spirituality and consciousness and metaphysics at many levels. That's another, you talk about rabbit holes, that's one I've gone down very deeply over the years. And that idea of what is consciousness, where are we, what's happening with the planet. Those, all of those different zigzags in my range of careers and experiences that I've had have really kind of allowed me to develop both sides of my brain, the left linear logical, trading numbers, that kind of stuff, and the right brain, holistic, creative, intuitive. So I have this ability to recognize non-obvious connections and patterns really quickly and really intuitively. And it's given me a very different perspective on the role Bitcoin is and will be playing in in upcoming years. So I'm very excited about what Bitcoin is and the foundation that it's going to create for the big shifts that are happening. So we're kind of talking about the foundation, but all the big shifts that are happening on top of that. So that's some of the stuff that will be fun to kind of explore with you today.
Absolutely, really cool. And I also love that you, we talked about that prior to the recording, where we said like a lot of the guests are exploring the political level, the financial level, but consciousness is something I might have actually just talked with you about. Maybe I'm misregarding like one guest, like where we touched it briefly on, or something like that. It
Right.
gets harder and harder to remember all the conversations. But this is something that is barely or at least very under discussed, I would say.
Yeah, and it's definitely, something your audience doesn't usually address. I mean, just people who are usually looking at Bitcoin, they're usually talking about the financial aspects, price predictions, how to accumulate it, how to live or retire on it, what going all in on it means, all that. But Bitcoin is totally aligned with a larger spiritual and energetic evolution of the planet that is currently unfolding. So this is an opportunity to kind of look at the intersection of Bitcoin and consciousness, both personally and where the planet is heading. So I want to kind of address, and this might be really kind of a door opener for some of your audience about what it means to them personally that this is happening, and also how it relates to what is happening on the larger global stage, if you will.
It is super interesting. Let's dive into this because this. There's I always I cannot put a thing on there, but I feel like Bitcoin super just fits into the world currently. It's just oh yeah, it makes so much sense that Bitcoin is here right now, and I wouldn't even know what to do without Bitcoin. And this kind of this feeling that a lot of Bitcoins I think have, and I think you can describe it in a good way of what's happening with the global consciousness coming together with the Bitcoin one.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about some energy and consciousness basics, if you will, just so we kind of have established a little bit of ground here. I mean, Bitcoin is digital money. Everybody knows it's digital money, right? And digital, of course, means electronic. It means electrical. Bitcoin is electrical, so it has frequency, it has resonance. So if we imagine a vast ocean of energy where everything, every atom, every particle, every thought is connected by invisible waves, that is the quantum field. And it's a sea of motion and vibration where life itself emerges. And within this field, there are layers of frequency, bands of energy vibrating at different speeds. So the lower frequencies are dense and material. They're anchoring us into our three-dimensional physicality and our fourth-dimensional time and space. And those dense lower frequencies can keep us kind of trapped in a limited ego-driven experiences. And I know lots of people have been talking about ego, like ego death capital, and what does ego mean in the context of Bitcoin, and we can talk a little bit about that a little bit later. The higher frequencies they're more subtle, they're more luminous, they're very expansive, and they're the home to inspiration and healing and unlimited potential. So when you shift your personal vibration upward into those higher, faster frequencies, you're unlocking the potential to move beyond three-dimensional constraints into a new state of multi-dimensional consciousness, which is a state of unity and expansion and limitless possibilities for us, even in these limited human, bodies and experiences. So you might be familiar with the concept of quantum entanglement. A lot of people have heard about quantum entanglement, what that means, but it's the phenomenon in quantum physics where particles remain connected and influence each other no matter how far apart they are. So this principle of non-locality, they're not next to each other influencing it. They can be far apart and still be influencing each other. That principle of non-locality reveals the reveals the interconnectedness of all things in the universe. So in the same way, you are deeply connected with the quantum field or your higher self or your soul and all living beings. So this is like a living technology, if you will, of consciousness, this interrelation with the quantum field. So when we tap into that multidimensional, unified field of consciousness, you can access universal knowledge, healing, creative energy that isn't available for your little left brain processing. This is like your little computer over here. It's just running the programs that it knows. But when we tune into that unified field of consciousness, all sorts of things become available to us, and you can transform and even manifest from this place of unity, knowing that you are always connected to that. It's like a divine source of creation, if you will. Now, the cool thing is that within this expanded state of multidimensional awareness, if you will, you can connect and kind of phase lock with your soul, your divine origin. So really merging with your soul presence, if you will, is like the very goal of human evolution. It's the resonance of ascension. People are talking about ascending, into different levels of frequency and awareness. So it's the merging of the divine from that unified field of consciousness with our human existence, what I call soul sovereignty. And that's something I've really been diving deep into this year, that idea of soul sovereignty. Have you ever heard of like the electromagnetic pulse? If we have, a heart cardiac pulse, but have you ever heard of the electromagnetic pulse?
No.
Okay. There's science confirms that your heart radiates a really powerful electromagnetic field that syncs with others around you. And that field is one of the most powerful fields in our body, and it radiates out past our physical body here and intersects and interacts with others' fields. And it responds to, your brainwaves respond to intent and focus and emotion. So I like to say that what we call God or spirit is like the original frequency behind every photon, every atom, every breath. And when you align with that frequency, you're not worshiping God or spirit, you're embodying it. It's a very different, so it's like the merging of soul with our human experience. Yeah.
I saw, I think this a year ago, it's been a while, and I don't even know where, but basically made an experiment where they had a large group of people and they measured their heart rate and blood pressure and all of that things, and measured them in the same room and like same environment. And the only thing they changed is music. And this was kind of interesting how strong of an impact the music on the heart rate and blood pressure and everything had. And there is like obviously the obvious explanation of like, oh, like if you hear like music that disturbs you or annoys you or like gets you up, like you get stressed and like it transforms the body. But there also was this theory of that there's waves sent out by the speakers, and it kind of transforms into the body directly, even outside of like you connecting something directly with the music. Does that go anywhere near what you just talked about?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole realm of healing modalities that have to do with their sound healing. They're using frequencies and vibrations to either break apart or shift the resonance of tissue, that's being held in our body. There's a wonderful book called The Resonance Effect, Dr. Carolyn McMakin, and she talks about very specific frequencies that she learned how to apply. And she said, she watched these particular frequencies absolutely just dissolve scar tissue. You can just change the frequency and the resonance, of tissue in our body, for instance, and it totally shifts things. That's been applied to, she talks about all sorts of different things, fibromyalgia and, all sorts of different things that she's applied it to. So, and myself in my practice, I work a lot with bioenergetics. So we are bioelectrical beings. We're not just we tend to think of ourselves as biochemical beings, hormone cascades, that kind of stuff. But we are first, before we are biochemical, we are bioelectrical. This is why EEGs and EKGs work. But you can get into the more subtle aspects of that. And in some of the work that I do with energy medicine, energy psychology, and my work with other clients, we're shifting things at the bioelectrical level in their body and just absolutely releasing from tissue memory negative beliefs, things that are being held, trauma that's being held in the body. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, where you don't just keep trauma in like memory in your brain, you actually keep it in your physical tissues. So yeah, sound healing I think that's actually where medicine is going, because you can do more with sound and frequency and vibration. You don't need to be, putting in pharmaceuticals and cutting tissue. You can, I've helped people shift cancer out of their bodies and all sorts of things. So sound healing and working with frequencies and vibrations is incredibly powerful. And we're just, it hasn't hit mainstream medicine yet because they're really tied into a very particular paradigm of how things have to be. But I think that's just as Bitcoin is going to be shifting how we think of money and store of value and wealth and all of those kinds of things. I think sound healing will be something similar.
And now the Bitcoin is then like the all the nodes that are available and the network and the miners that are there. Is that then the kind of the consciousness of Bitcoin? And are the people also part of that?
Yeah, that's an aspect of it. There are a couple of things I kind of want to talk about before this, but I think of Bitcoin as conscious money. Because it has like a consciousness to it, and because it's global and it's just encompassing everything, and because it has particular frequencies that are totally aligned with where the planet is going, and the planet is undergoing a massive upgrade in its consciousness, and all of us in our consciousnesses, if you can say that plural, and Bitcoin is part of that. I'm curious if you feel like what your personal experience has been. Like, do you feel like Bitcoin woke you up? And, how did you get clear? Because a lot of times people experience clarity around different things after they go down the rabbit hole. So I'm curious that, if you feel like Bitcoin kind of woke you up to some things in your life or how the world works or, that kind of thing.
I'm extremely careful with that because I'm not sure. When I found Bitcoin, I was 21 years old, and now I'm 27. So from 21 to 27, even completely without Bitcoin, there's a lot of things happening in your life that change. Like first actual girlfriend, moving out, earning your own money, I build my own company. The second one actually right now, all of those things. I moved within the 3 countries. All of those things contribute, changed my environment a lot. I, since 3 years, work mostly with people that are at least twice my age. So this also impacted me a lot. It's what I want to say is all of those things, impacted me a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to say of how much of the impact is now because of the different people, because all the different experiences, and how much is actually Bitcoin. So that's why I'm a little careful with oh yeah, Bitcoin woke me up, and because of Bitcoin I see this and that, because it might just be the one person in my environment that had more impact than actually Bitcoin.
It's a whole mix of things for you, and I totally get it. In my 20s, I kind of, to me, your 20s are the time to figure out who the heck you are, and 30s, you kind of 30s, 40s, you put it into, into motion, relationship, family, work, developing a career. But 20s to me is figuring out who you are time. Not teens, but really 20s. Because I know I changed dramatically in terms of clarity about who I was. And I think, for those who haven't experienced an awakening before, I think Bitcoin wakes many up to clarity around what's really important in their lives. Low time preference, relationships, partner and family, health, purpose, a sense of purpose, integrity, personal integrity, sustainability, and sovereignty, that power of freedom from external control. So I think if people haven't had that come to them through other means in their lives. I think Bitcoin has been an amazing catalyst for people having waking up to or having greater clarity around that. I'm curious, I get that where you are in your life journey, but you said, a lot of the people that you interview, things like that, or on your pod are, twice your age. So how many of your guests do you think have reported something similar where Bitcoin kind of woke them up to something that they weren't paying attention to or aware of, and it gave them much greater clarity around, these kinds of topics?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And it's interesting because I think there's a lot of people that, like, I've known some examples where they believed, for example, what the mainstream narrative kind of was.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of those people, Bitcoin was the first time where they broke through, where everyone around them told them, oh, I think Bitcoin is a scam, or Bitcoin is too bad for the environment, and all of those things. And then they broke through that, and they're like, oh, all those people say that Bitcoin is bad, but I know actually Bitcoin is great. And
Right.
when you once break this thing, it's way easier to break other things. And so that's what I'm thinking, like, that's probably this like waking up moment of like, just
Yes.
like breaking one barrier. I was like, oh, okay, what else is true? But I also do see people going almost overcorrecting to the other side too much, and like all of a sudden question everything, thinking there's like evil behind everything that this like doing. And then there's like a whole bunch of conspiracy theories that like might be true, might be not true, but like, why do you worry about it? And so it is interesting to see people that are maybe 40, maybe 50, that have more already a stable life, break through things. Then I think with 21, 22, you can more easily break through things because you haven't really built up those barriers in your head.
That's true. That's a really good point. And I do think that, in speaking with a lot of folks that I have interacted with, Bitcoin does, once you break through that, it's not a Ponzi. It does make you question everything else, and question the mainstream narrative, media narrative. I used to depend on NPR and the New York Times for my data sources, right? Now I can't even read the New York Times. I'll read the headlines and I'll go, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, because they're presenting such a limited, particular perspective that is not reflecting the whole truth of what's happening. So, definitely some of the Bitcoin stuff, I mean, I had some of this awareness a long time ago because I kind of got out of mainstream corporate America into holistic healing and metaphysics and consciousness, and getting a much larger perspective on, what was happening in the world, which made me question a lot of the mainstream narrative back then. But Bitcoin has just put another cap on that. Yeah. And there's a, are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Yeah.
Oh yeah, like what a human needs basically, and like leveling up to like fulfillment.
Exactly. Right. So it's for those who aren't familiar with it, it usually is presented as like a pyramid with 5 levels, and the lowest one being just your physiological, food, shelter, the basics, and then safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, and then Maslow's highest is what he calls self-actualization, and that's it's really just kind of having morals, understanding who you are. But to me, from the work that I have done, I think that there you go. Right. Yeah. Thanks for pulling that up. For me, that there is a higher level than his self-actualization. And I think there's a higher level awakening that is happening. And I'm calling that soul sovereignty. And to me, it's that is the union of your human experience with your soul level awareness, your divine origin. And to me, it's just as fundamentally transformative as Bitcoin is at the financial or the cultural level. So we are being guided, I think, to step into the truest, the highest, the most authentic versions of ourselves. And it's not, it's the realization that we are something greater, the experience of ourselves as spiritual beings having a human experience, not just humans. So that joining of our divine origin with our human experience. And for those who haven't kind of considered something like that, to me, the beginning of true freedom or soul sovereignty is the realization that you are not the thinker. You are not the human just having those little thoughts. I mean, the moment you start watching the thinker, you start watching yourself having those thoughts, a higher level of consciousness gets activated. And you begin to realize that there is a vast realm of intelligence beyond thought. And so thought is really only a tiny aspect of that vast realm of intelligence. So to me, Bitcoin is like a foundational aspect of the up-leveling of our human experience to these higher frequencies and levels of awareness and experience. I mean, Bitcoin's core values of inclusion and resilience and security and decentralization, truth, transparency, individual sovereignty, empowerment. Everything is energy and frequency, and Bitcoin as digital money is like energy money. I'm calling it conscious money, but energy money. And it really Bitcoin aligns with this next chapter of the human or the global experience that is and will be embodying cooperation, collaboration, compassion, self-expression, and freedom. And that's where we're headed as kind of more conscious human beings. And Bitcoin is totally aligned with that because it's a neutral global money enables and promotes borderless cooperation and peace. So, and it's sometimes hard to see that in the world right now because what's getting all of the airtime is all the stuff, old systems breaking down, power structures dissolving, matrix dissolving. It's very dramatic and kind of in your face. And underlying groups in power being revealed, secrets are coming, into the light, they're surfacing. But underneath that, individuals are recognizing, reclaiming their sovereignty, their core values. And I get this feeling that there's like a sense of, and this kind of relates back to the Matrix, right? Of piercing the veil of illusion that we've been under that might have held us down in the past. I mean, we're getting real about any deception that we might have experienced in our lives where we were made to feel powerless. Most of us have lived with a sense of like powerlessness or victimhood for most of our lives as we've lived in kind of a top-down system, right? Power over. But as we step into our sovereignty and inner authority, this is changing. This is starting to change.
The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use simplemining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. no KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need.
It's super interesting. And also, I recently watched a video which is super interesting because I don't have a lot of boredom. But he kind of talked, he talked about the importance of having free time to think, of having a time of like, I don't do anything right now. Like, I don't watch TV. I don't work. I don't work out. I don't listen to music. I don't cook. Like, I just
no input. No input.
And this is amazing. And I've kind of thought, like, I don't have this at all. Like, I'm so rare that I have that.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it's really, I mean, this is almost the basis of meditation, is just sitting without any external input and just being with what is. Because when you do that, and this is a little bit of a spiritual whatever, but you know, you allow the little small quiet voice that might be your soul level trying to get your attention. It's not a loud voice. It's a very quiet little voice. And when you always have input, you can't hear it. But if you create really quiet time where there's no external input, then that voice can start to be heard. You can start to get intuitive hits on things. You can kind of ask about things like, you know, if I were going to do that, like, what would that mean? Or I need some help or guidance about this, and you'll get help, you'll get support, you'll get guidance. Of course, it's been studied at the physiological level. You know, brains change when we move into a meditative state, when we allow ourselves to be in that quiet state of no input. It's very powerful. It sounds like in our very, very busy, you know, fill up time world, it sounds like a nothing, but it's actually very, very powerful and rich and full with meaning and purpose and support for you.
I always have to explain to my mind, like how this actually works. And my best explanation for me that like kind of made sense for me was, my muscle, when I train them, needs rest where he doesn't do anything to actually grow. So you're like, you go into the gym, you lift heavy weights, and you don't grow in the gym. You actually grow when you give the muscle time to relax and actually grow, because it has to build those tissues. And like, we can explain this also medical, but like the simple thing is like, you hit it, you heard it, and because you heard it, it grows back stronger. And with the brain, I see it similarly, because the brain is also muscle. Like, we use it, we give it our best, we think about hard problems, we give it so much input, and then we also have to give it the time to process all those things and to just like not do anything. And so I love my Saturdays and Sundays, because in those days I now think more about like, I'm just laying on the couch, look at the roof, and I'm like, and it's very hard because my brain always tricks me back to work. If you're late 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, this idea, I should do this. And now it's especially hard if you're like me, an entrepreneur. So like, I don't know if like since we last spoke, I've founded with two friends who's Microseed, a company in America, self-custody device, and I have the podcast. So there is always something to do. Like there's literally at any moment, I cannot work as hard as I could work 24/7 a day, and there would be another thing that like I have on top of my mind, like, oh, like this thing I also could do, this thing I also could do, this thing I also could do. And for people like that, like me, it's very hard to just lay there and like don't do anything, because after 10 minutes, like probably after 2 minutes, you have an idea what you could do right now that is very productive and very great.
I totally get it. I mean, in many ways, I'm the same way. You know, when I wake up in the morning, some people take a long time to wake up. When I wake up, I'm like, I am ready to hit it 100%. And I'm just like, ping, up, ready to go. And it's reinforced in our society because culturally we value activity and busyness over, serenity, quiet, being internal. I mean, you've probably, I don't know if this is the same thing in Europe. It's not the same in Europe as it is in the US, but you would ask people when I was back in corporate, how are you? And they go, oh God, I'm so busy. I've just been slammed. And that's like a mark of, esteem rather than your life isn't balanced. I think Europe is much better about taking long lunches and taking time and valuing relationships and those kinds of things. But I want to really make sure that we draw the distinction between when you do nothing, that's not passive. That's actually active. So, doing nothing is it's not a passive. It's not a nothing. It's a something. And it's a very powerful something. We tend to think of it as a nothing, that there's nothing happening during that time. You say processing what's happening, but there can be a lot that can be happening. It's a much richer, more powerful space and activity, if you will, than we give it credit for, specifically in our, American culture. Or just in our 21st century culture.
I 100% agree. I've drifted a little bit, I think. Before I asked you about the consciousness of Bitcoin, and you said there's like many things that we first have to cover in the basics.
Yeah.
So I was like, just to make sure we got that in. What do we have to like cover?
Well, I wanted to, we were talking a little bit about what consciousness is and, that kind of, but I wanted to share my perspective on what we can expect globally over the next 6 months or so. And it's, this is a very kind of discrete time frame. I'm not saying, over the next decade. It's like really, we're in the midst of just a massive global shift energetically that has been predicted through many, many sources for eons. And it's everybody's, all these different sources have been saying it's coming, but now they're all saying it's here, it's right now. So even just beginning, in September, we're starting to see it, and ongoing, we'll start to see leaders falling from power, especially if they've not been operating for the highest good of their people. And this has been happening, with the resignation of the Japanese and the French prime ministers, the collapse of the Nepalese and the Thai governments, President Macron under great pressure, as well as, the EU and the UK leadership under pressure. We're going to see sudden revelations in relationships, finances, power, secrets surfacing, shattering truths being revealed. People you thought were unshakable will fall, and people you underestimated will rise. And there's a mass awakening of voices that have really been silenced for generations. We'll probably see the collapse of at least one untouchable institution. And we're starting to see the return of ancient power and wisdom through dreams and visions and intuition, those things surfacing, within us, and a turning point in global money flow. So, overall, what we're seeing is like the collective is entering what I'm calling the hour of truth. Time is going to appear to speed up. It was already pretty fast this year, but it's going to speed up. Things are just going to be happening like this. Events accelerating, becoming very, very dynamic in the next 4 to 6 months. And we're going to see non-linear jumps in state. And this is part of what happens when you're working at the consciousness level. It's not a linear process. A lot of times we will see something and it'll just go from here to there, like instantaneously. And we're going to start seeing some things like that, even in our, geopolitical world. December and January, we're going to see massive endings and beginnings at every level. huge shifts in consciousness globally. And truthfully, nothing that is aligned with fear or control or greed can withstand what is coming. And some will panic. They will be attached to their fear, continuing, to relinquish their power to others. But those who stand grounded in love, in their personal sovereignty, will embody the new energetic pathways that are being opened. So that's kind of what's happening at the global level. And there may be some things that people experience very personally as a result of these really massive energetic upgrades and shifts that are happening. And I'm starting to see this in talking with a number of clients. 4 things that are kind of coming up. One is you lose interest in things that used to just light you up, right? It's like, it's not burnout. It's like a rejection of the identity that you've outgrown. And what used to excite you perhaps now drains you. You're just not interested in it anymore. The second is you experience random waves of thoughts or memories or emotions with no explanation. And it's not a mental glitch. It's like your system purging layers that no longer belong to you, no longer serve you. You're, and hang on one second here, frog in my throat. Many people find that they're no longer able to tolerate fake energy at all, even from people you care about. And you're not judging, you're just no longer able to portray your inner integrity for the sake of connection. So that anything that feels fake, there's no toleration for it at all. And to your point, just prior, I'm starting to see people, and myself included, crave more silence and peace. No input, no guidance, no stimulation, partially because we no longer need to escape ourselves. We're tuning in and we're being present with our inner experience, and which is a very powerful place to be. And then, excuse me. And then the last one, which we were referencing a little while back, was you start questioning everything, even your old truths, and especially the spiritual ones. And that's not regression. That's like your old identity, your ego dissolving, and your higher self starting to kind of take the wheel. So those are some of the things that, people are starting to experience personally, rather than, some of the big global shifts that we're seeing. I'm curious if you've been experiencing any things like that in your inner world.
A lot. There's many different layers to that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, my own personal layer, I think it's always hard to say because I'm young and there's so much going on. But even if I look a little bit more outside, I feel like there's a lot of new coming in the world. When we think about how the new generation wants to have things versus the old one, but even politically, I think politically is always it kind of shows us what's going on to a certain extent because
Mm-hmm.
there's a democracy involved, there's people involved, and in the past, 3 years, we had 4 chancellors in Austria. And Austria is such a boring small country. Nobody cares. And still we have so much drama going on and stuff going on. And, I personally think that, Bitcoin, and with that comes a whole different energy, that something completely new started to happening, something
Mm-hmm.
almost a new time frame, a new time calculation. And this is all this is things that I just feel, and you cannot really pinpoint it as this happened and that's why this is that, and this is kind of hard to pinpoint it, and almost hard to speak out loud because it's more things you feel. And yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this because there is something's happening.
Absolutely. And to your point, a lot of us and a lot of people are feeling it, but they don't necessarily have the paradigm, the framework, the vocabulary to describe what it is they're feeling. It feels different. They're not sure why or how. And like I talked about, one of the things that's come up for people is a hard part of awakening is realizing that you aren't vibing with many others in the same way. And this overlaps with some of the experiences post-Bitcoin awakening that many people have. I mean, you don't feel you're part of the matrix or the hive mentality anymore. You feel more loyal to your soul or your core values than to what society says. You feel kind of too real to fit in. I know so many Bitcoiners that are like, they're going to events or barbecues and they're like, they can't even talk to anybody, because all the stuff that people are talking about, they're just not interested anymore. It's like, it just feels fake, and it's, I tell people it's really, don't be discouraged, because it's better to be patient when it comes to attracting those who will resonate with you at a soul level. Don't trade in your truth for validation or attention, in a group or whatever, and enjoy your solitude and remain authentic to who you are. And eventually you will be even more magnetic towards those who are genuinely in tune with your unique vibrational frequency, at that soul level. But that is a hard part of awakening. It's feeling like you're just not on the same vibe at all with a lot of folks that we used to be really close with, right?
This is super interesting because I found I have a new kind of bar for an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And this is definitely because of Bitcoin, probably also a lot because of the podcast, because of I have just so many interesting conversations with the podcast, people all across the world, from Africa, America, Australia, India, all coming together and speak with me. The most interesting people in their communities come here on the podcast. So there's definitely something going on with that, but also with Bitcoin in general. I hear conversations and I'm like, there's nothing to that conversation. There's no depth. There's nothing. You could just also not speak and it would be the same value. And so I found myself the last 2 years, it's sometimes I just completely blink out in a conversation. I'm like, oh, what? Because I have no interest. I don't know. I don't really even hear it. It's not that there's something that I disagree with. It's just something that I don't even want to it's nothing that interests me.
I totally get it. And you're in a unique, position because you do have so many interesting people coming across your radar that a lot of people don't have, that don't have that opportunity to have the conversations that, the deep, depthful, wonderful quality conversations and being able to go deep. I mean, a lot of people are just not interested in the superficial anymore. I mean, there's a lot of people out in the world. There are a lot of, muggles, right? The term muggles, right? From
Never
Harry Potter.
It.
Harry Potter is if you aren't a wizard or a Harry Potter person, the kind of normies, when you say normies, muggles is a similar thing. It's they don't get it. They're just kind of plodding along in their lives, right? And a lot of their, what they're, not their concerns, because their concerns are important and valid, but the conversations they have are just shallow. And a lot of Bitcoiners I know, and because I'm also in metaphysics and consciousness, I'm not interested in shallow anymore. I want to go deep, or just don't bother me. So it's that's not totally true. I care about my muggle friends, etc. But in terms of blinking out a little bit, or really valuing, let me put it that way, valuing the deep conversations, valuing when you can go deep on topics with people. That's what kind of makes my heart sing, right? And makes me feel truly connected to that person when we're able to do that. Yeah.
I just looked it up because I was curious next to it.
What does it say?
No, I looked something different up, because I was actually curious. I never looked it up. How many chancellors Austria had, and it's really funny. We had 4 chancellors in the last 3 years. We had 5 in the last 5 years, and we had 8 in the last 10 years, and we had 10 in the last 20 years. So sorry for that random thought.
No, that's a perfect example. Yeah, that's a perfect example of how quickly things are changing, and we're going to see more and more of that. The old guard, the old paradigm, the old systems are crumbling, and as to the point I was making earlier, it's you're seeing all the crumbling. You're not seeing everything that's underneath coming up that's going to, create a new world. So that's very quiet. It's not getting the same kind of press in mainstream media. You're seeing all the stuff that's falling apart on that, on TV, whatever. But there's a lot that is underneath. It's just that are coming, that are here, are very powerful, but they're much, much quieter. And so when I talked about seeing some of those quantum leaps, nonlinear. It's not going to be this gradual, things breaking down and then something else will start getting. We're going to see major shifts over the next 12 months, massive shifts. So it feels like the current frequencies that we're in feel like a cosmic final sweep, a clearing of residual emotional, mental, cellular debris that's accumulated over years of personal and planetary shifts. So the Earth's energetic grid is charged and it's very polarized right now. And there's like a double wave pattern that's been rolling through the Earth's field. One wave of deep clearing of this old programming is surfacing and being cleared. And another wave of like new energetic coding, new harmonic blueprints being laid down. And that's kind of much quieter, happening underneath the surface. But the deeper gift of like today's resonance, what's happening today, is the integration of wisdom into our experience. All the energetic gateways of 2025 have been preparing us for this moment, the ability to hold higher vibrations of consciousness, of compassion, of discernment, of sovereignty without fragmentation. So we're not making the past disappear. We're simply cutting the emotional cords that are anchoring us to that past and preventing us from inner growth and expansion.
Super interesting. Now, there's so many different paths now with like the consciousness that you talked about, with the Bitcoin, how it interlays, and then also like the soul sovereignty, I think you called it, which is also super interesting on an individual level. Is there anything that you kind of forgot? Is this like anything that we like with the consciousness, the merging of Bitcoin with what's currently going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like, we've been hearing about that we're in the fourth turning. I mean, you're totally familiar with that phrase, right? Economically, socially, a time of the reshaping of institutions and culture. And it's like we are in a fourth turning consciously also in the consciousness or the expansion, elevation, ascension of the planet. So it's like we are living an even greater turning of the age. It's not like we were talking before. This is not a linear process. It's like a quantum jump in consciousness and awareness, a massive planetary systems upgrade over the next 6 to 12 months. So these are very revolutionary energies. And it's, I don't do a lot of astrology, but I follow some. So I'm kind of aware of some of the influence of planetary things, and the energies and the alignments are the exact same as 1776 and 1779. The U.S. Revolution and the French Revolution. These are very revolutionary energies right now. So Bitcoin is providing not only a key to the dissolution of the old in terms of the financial underpinnings, but a crucial foundation for this new period that we are moving into. So it's creating not just a new global financial system, but a vehicle to support new social and energetic constructs. And this is why I'm calling Bitcoin not just digital, but conscious money. And I think it's going to be instrumental in changing the planet in a far more profound way than we can imagine. So between now and like the next large energetic cycle in 2034, our path really is about mastery, self-leadership, and the quiet power that comes from living your truth from a new center of gravity, if you will. I mean, truth and awakening, both personal and kind of, national, global, will start to happen more rapidly now and will be more widespread. And this evolution is unstoppable now. So I'm really wanting people to trust the process and feel excited that in one lifetime, basically, we are going from being stuck in a very rigid three-dimensional reality to something that's much more multidimensional and congruent with the highest outcome for us as humans and, for the planet. So don't fear the turbulence or the revelations. Don't get stuck in all the drama, but walk through the institutions crumbling around you, because you are the future that Spirit is guiding and protecting and helping move us forward. So one thing that's super important to remember in these times, it's really crucial to consciously choose your focus and your attention. I talked about that heart resonance that's going out, that's impacting others. Where you put your focus is what you create. And, when we focus on embodying the higher frequencies at this time of love and joy and peace, gratitude, compassion, and importantly, sovereignty and freedom, that's what we need to be focusing on and feeling it into your being. These are the emotions that you are broadcasting out to the world through, those really powerful electromagnetic pulses that we're sending out with every thought, with every feeling. So the new earth that we are kind of creating, it's not a place, it's inside us. And the more of us that can feel these and reside in these states, the faster it manifests in ourselves and in others. And we start to see a different reality, emerging on earth, not just all the drama of things that are dissolving. And one of the other aspects around this is we must be responsible for our own frequencies, like what are our own experiences, but also in order to benefit those around us. This is part of the awakening because it's going to be much more about collaboration and community and care for others, not just simply service to self. So the more that you are in these states, you're not just benefiting you, you're benefiting everyone else. It's like, the rock that gets dropped in the pond, and the waves go out. You're benefiting others through embodying these frequencies and these experiences.
This is I think the key. This is like, if you service and bring as much value as possible to other people, you weirdly enough benefit from that the most. So doing the most selfless is in a weird way the most selfish thing you can possibly do. It's like a weird dynamic I kind of discovered for myself.
I call it the infinity loop. Like, you give out, it comes back. You give out, it comes back. And it's to your point. This is kind of yes, and service to others. But also, when you embody these frequencies, you are also giving those to others. You are also imbuing those, in others' experiences through your interactions. So it's like selfless service, but at a deeper kind of frequency level of compassion and cooperation and, love and peace. And if you're embodying those, it is selfless service to others to embody those. Absolutely.
It's amazing. I don't know. There's so much going on. We already had like over an hour. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm looking forward to how the audience liked it. Let me know in the comments, because this has been, that's for sure very different than any other podcast. It's also our first one. Sorry, you want to say something?
I was going to say, hopefully this has provided, some of your audience, your listeners, with a larger perspective that will support them in more comfortably navigating this very dynamic period that we are in. And this is, there's a new consciousness being created at this time, and this evolution is unstoppable now. And it's like, as Lynn Alden says about the financial unwinding, nothing stops this train either.
100%. And I asked each and every one of my returning guests a question that will be more interesting actually with you. The question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance?
Oh, that's a really good question. From my perspective, I think what I have learned is that things are happening a lot faster than I thought they were going to. I thought this was going to be 5-10 years. And I think it's going to be 3, 6, 9 months. I think things are, very compressed and as I said, nonlinear. So I don't know if that's a learning, but it's a realization. And having that realization has allowed me to really be conscious about what I'm feeling, how I'm expressing, how I'm interacting with others, my service, all of those kinds of things. It's shifted my perspective on, I don't know if this is the right phrase, but like, don't wait, get your acting gear now, because now is when it's happening. It's not happening like out there sometime. It's right now.
I love that. Really cool. It also kind of embodies like what I'm saying with Bitcoin is like, don't be surprised if it goes faster than you think within the next like 1-2 years.
Absolutely.
Maybe like months. We never know.
Right.
We have an routine in podcast, as you might know from last time, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, do you think knots versus core, the knots versus core debate is a psyop or an actual good debate?
I think it's actually a good debate. I don't think it's a psyop, but I also, in some ways, we talk about it's like short-term thinking. It's a little low time preference. Everybody's kind of caught up in it because as Bitcoiners, we're taught to kind of, have longer, like, time preference. I mean, higher time preference, not higher, lower in terms of longer.
It's lower time preference. If you look long out, it's always confusing for me too.
It's backwards. So I think a lot of that is just spinning, and it's kind of distracting us. So I don't think it's a psyop. I just think it's, it will get resolved, just like all the other things like that before around Bitcoin code have been resolved. So I don't think it's a psyop.
How do you actually think about the consciousness of all the Bitcoiners, like just like the social layer, if you so will, of the Bitcoin protocol?
Are you talking about the people or the protocol?
The people. I call it the social layer of the Bitcoin protocol.
Got it. I misheard you. Okay. In terms of their level of consciousness, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just how you look at the consciousness and the energy around the people, because I think there's an interesting, I don't know, there's a very interesting energy and relationship between all of those people. A short story. I never took my girlfriend to a Bitcoin conference, and she always had a picture in her mind how a Bitcoin conference worked. The picture kind of came from the other conferences she went from work. And I took her to the Prague conference. It's a very important conference for me, and like it's not that far away from us, so it's like I'll just jump in the train, and like it's easy. Like I anyways have a hotel room, just like join me there. And she was there, and she did not want to come to the conference, but we stayed at the hotel where a lot of Bitcoiners stayed. And we met one of the organizers, and the organizer was like, you have to come, and you have to come. And then the organizer just said like, I'll give you a VIP ticket, but you have to come. It's like, she's like, wow. Okay, like if he gives me the ticket, like at least I have to come quickly. And she came there and was like, that's so different. Like the whole vibe, the friendliness of the people, the whole, like she just came there, and the whole feeling was so positive, so nice, so hopeful, and so great for her. She felt at home at a conference with like 10,000 strangers.
Right. And that's part of what I was talking about before, is when people wake up to Bitcoin, they wake up to their core values. I was at another event a couple weeks ago up in Montana, and we had 40 of us, all solid Bitcoiners. And there were a couple of people who were spouses who hadn't never been to a gathering like that. And they were just amazed that, when you come in, you have this underlying assumption of these core values automatically, which means you can just be friendly right on top of it. You don't have to check somebody out and see, are you on the same wavelength? Do you have the same beliefs and core values? You can just make the assumption that you do. So there's that, which means you can just go into like friend zone really fast in terms of trusting them. And then, of course, there's the whole thing of the social layer of Bitcoin of we have hope. We have reason to have hope, which puts us in this place of openness and, heart openness and welcoming. We're not in this place of, how am I going to earn enough, and how am I going to survive? And, we're not in that place of fear. So in a conference, there's that warm, open friendliness, accepting for those two reasons. One is core values, and the other is we think we know where this is headed, and it gives us a tremendous amount of hope about what's possible for us as humans, our culture, the world. So I think those two things are really playing into it.
I love it. And you can put it better in words than I can. That's for sure. So thank you so much, Holly, for being on the podcast. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. I always love these conversations with you. They're really great. You can find me through my X handle, which is bliss_smart. So Bliss the Smart Way, which is from my private practice, or through the bitcoinadvisor.com/Holly, for assistance with buying, managing, and securing your Bitcoin, multi-sig collaborative custody, estate planning, tax strategies, that kind of stuff. So I've been working with them for the last over 2 years now, supporting people in being able to comfortably, own their Bitcoin and be able to sleep at night. So those are the two best ways to find me.
I love how you you connect those two things together. Like it's like as you said in the beginning, it was like this logical mind and this more spiritual one. Like it's fascinating for me. I already look forward to our third conversation. So yeah, thank you so much for being on, and also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.